Hello, and welcome to Sacred Herbalism, the full moon segment of the Elder Tree podcast, where we explore how plants and fungi can support us to enter into a sacred relationship with life and the living world. I'm your host, Stephanie Hazel, herbalist, anthropologist, and a deep lover of this wild world. Let's walk into the moonlit forest together, into a world of magic, mysticism, psychedelic teachers, and, of course, the plants themselves. Are you ready? Have you ever had a dream about a plant? A dream that felt significant, like maybe that plant was trying to tell you something? Or have you ever needed the medicine from a plant and just closed your eyes and walked where you felt you were being called and then found the plant you needed? These are some of the stories that Lily of the Herbs shares with me in this interview. This interview happened spontaneously after a dinner party. I'd only just met her, and we decided to go into my studio and record a conversation between us about plants, about sacred herbalism, and about what it means to be in relationship with the herb world. This interview is all about humility. It's about listening and being willing to be at ease with the mystery of the not knowing that being on the herbal path is so much about. Lily of the Herbs is a herbalist and a Zenthai Shiatsu practitioner based in Warrandyte on the outskirts of Melbourne. She's open-hearted, intuitive, thoughtful, and a great conversationalist. Just to really get right into it, I just would love to know what the sacred means to you.
I think the sacred means to me presence and moments of honouring and gratitude.
And is there a time in your life that you've had a particular experience of the plant world and plants as being sacred that you could speak to?
Yeah, I think there's been so many. Ones that's just coming through right now is I often dream of plants. So I'll wake up and, then it'll be triggered the next morning. So, sometimes I'll have a dream like I was running through the forest, looking for hawthorn. It was just like, or in my mind I'll be like, rosehip. I wake up in the morning and be like, wow, that was really flowing through my dreams. And recently my dad's been quite sick. And I've been quite worried about him, and I had in the night, I had this dream. He had a gut infection from the hospital, and I'd forgotten about a dream, and then I messaged a naturopath friend just asking for some advice, and she said golden seal, and then I remembered that it was in my dream. It had just been golden seal in my dream. And so with these two, I guess synchronicities coming through, I decided to call in some golden seal for him. And it's not a plant that I've worked with a lot, and I know that it is in some ways endangered. Well, it is endangered, and that's why I've kind of just, used other methods and things that I can source locally. But I thought, no, this is a pretty extreme situation. So I got the golden seal delivered in like a day or two, and he'd been on really strong antibiotics, which I'd also been doing some research, and the infection that he had was also like resistant to the antibiotics. So I was like talking with him, and I said the hospital probably won't like this, but would you be interested in trying the golden seal? And we had some chats around, and he said, look, it's probably no harm in me taking a 5-day break. And then he went on the golden seal for 5 days, and it did clear up the infection. And it just felt like maybe it would have cleared up anyway, maybe the all of these things, we never know. But for me, it was a very strong guide. It felt like I'd been guided by something other, that the plants had come in and helped.
So beautiful. Do you remember the dream, or just?
It was like, I don't remember the dream at all, and often I don't remember the context of the dream, but it will be very clear, like it'll be an image of the herb, and it's just like being repeated.
Amazing. What a beautiful way to be receiving communication and be in relationship with plants, right? And dreams are so mysterious. Here next to me there's this big branch of mugwort drying, that's come out of my garden, tree mugwort, and I've definitely had some amazing experiences of smoking mugwort or drying it in my bedroom or drinking it as tea and then having such incredible kind of visionary dreams. And it's always seemed so magical to me that a plant that you drink as a tea can change this really personal and I guess kind of unconscious aspect of being human, the dreamscape.
Definitely. And now that you say that, I realise that I have been taking a mugwort tincture almost every day for the last couple of months. So and I didn't even make that correlation. I was sort of taking it for other reasons. But yes.
Wow, so maybe that mugwort tincture that you've had has opened you up to those more kind of direct communications from plants in the dream space.
Maybe, yeah. And you're making me want to really write them down. Sometimes I'll just share, these things have happened a couple of times, and now I'm like, I want to start writing my dreams down. See if I can remember any specific plants that have been coming through.
In a way, dreams, I feel, is like a final frontier of mystery, and I love that you have so many different theories, and I have so many different theories too. But it's actually so precious that it's something that we can't understand, that we can have all these theories about, but that it remains mysterious, I think, is so important for the human psyche, to not be able to understand everything.
I really like that, and I feel like that about plants too. So often people want to know the why, or why does this herb do this, or do like this specific action, but like in the end, it's like I actually don't know anything. That's what I keep coming back to. It's like all I have is the experiences that I've had. I can read about something in a book or do something, try a herb with someone, but it's like at the end of the day I actually know nothing. And I feel like the herbs, they can, like we were talking about at dinner before, they can almost, if you form a relationship with them, they can almost become whatever they want to become really within us. It's not like, as we were saying before, lemon balm, it has one, these actions, and it's only for anxiety or, mood enhancing, it's like it probably does whatever, it's like I'm not just Lily. I'm not Lily who's loud or quiet, or I'm Lily different in every moment.
Any different circumstances, right? And that's something that I love. I love working with people to support them to understand and to discover for themselves the way that plants are so individual, and that how we respond to a particular medicinal plant is very personalized, right? Like lemon balm we're talking about probably has hundreds of different chemicals, that most of which we don't even understand what they do. Most of them haven't even been named or drawn, let alone understanding how they all work together in combination, right? Like a pharmaceutical is one molecule that has been very clearly defined and has a very direct and understood and predictable mode of action. It has a specific cellular pathway because it's one molecule. But when you have 200 different molecules all working together in 200 different sites in the body, the way that works, I feel, is more like a symphony. It's very complex, and it's very nuanced, and it's very modulating. It's almost like it dances with you. And that means that it works very differently in different people who have different kinds of things going on. And one thing I really wish for, the way that plant medicine is talked about and promoted in the world today, is for that more individualized, personalized understanding to come through, rather than being like lemon balm, it's for anxiety and depression. Yes, it can be for anxiety and depression in certain kinds of people showing certain kinds of symptoms. It's more for a particular feeling or pattern, a particular type of disturbed pattern that it can help bring back into a particular kind of balance, right? And we just try to match herbs with diseases. I think we're really missing the point. We're missing the mystery. We're missing that personal, relational aspect.
100%. That is, you've said it so well. I often say that kind of like, when you meet a person, you sort of walk into a room and there's sometimes an instant affinity with that person and you don't know why, and there's this feeling of having known one another, and it can be the same with people and plants. And then often and then that can change. Sometimes you meet someone and you're like, oh, I didn't really like them, I got a bit of a, and then other people are like, what, I love them, they're like the best person ever, and you're like, really, I just didn't feel it when when I was hanging with them. They were like tired, grumpy, and they barely said hello to me. And you're like, yeah, I just didn't see the hype, and then, you know, you meet them a few more times, and then suddenly you crack them, and then like you're in the right position, and you're like, oh, okay, I see what it is, and then the magic comes out. You know, maybe it can be like that with people and plants too.
I feel like I've had that relationship with coffee since living in Melbourne. Like I came to Melbourne and I was, you know, coffee's delicious and it feels amazing for a short period of time, but I'd be like, oh my God, it's so intense and I feel all tight and my jaw is all tense and, and then actually, I don't know if it's just that my partner makes really great coffee, but I think it's not that. I think I'm just in a different place in my life. I'm a mum, I'm really sleep deprived. Like I'm also more grounded in some way, you know, and now I'm just a total coffee, you know, have one a day, but still I really need that coffee in the morning. Something that I always warn people of, you know. So coffee speaks to me in a new way now. We've made friends.
Great, that's beautiful. That's so beautiful. Yeah, we get into very linear ways. Everyone wants a linear, straight answer about, is this plant can I use it for this? Will it have this effect, you know? And you know, and I guess as we were both talking about business before at dinner, you know, or creating a career or being a practitioner, you know, you want to be able to give people definitive answers or say, yes, this is the one for you. But at the end of the day, like, I think I'm just like always learning humility and I guess pretty much always I just want to say, like, I don't know. Like I can never give an answer about anything, and it's just like want to encourage everyone to explore as much as possible. See himself.
Definitely live in a world that teaches us linear causality, and that, you know, you have control over something when you understand the cause and effect, and that cause and effect is, you know, generally a little one box is the cause with one arrow going to one effect, and then you have, because that's the cause and that's the effect, then you have the answer is also one box and one arrow, you know, in all those situations. And yeah, I love that in the modern world at the moment, there's a lot of systems thinking is becoming really popular, you know, kind of looking at the way ecologies work with each other and how all the different beings in an ecology interact and essentially create a system of complex relationships. And that's actually what causes everything of that ecology to emerge, that that particular environment is like an emergent quality or an emergent property of that system. I think that's a kind of thinking that old world herbalists already know, right? It's like your anxiety isn't because of this particular trauma. Your gut problem isn't because of you don't have the right bacteria. It's so much more complex than that. It's the way all these different things interact with each other. It's how your microbiome interacts with your brain and how your trauma interacts with your amygdala, but then how your story about the trauma, and how the house you live in has this mold, and it's all these like complex threads weaving together to make a story. And I find that it can be very difficult as a practitioner to know which of those threads is the right one to pull on, right? And people do come being like, oh, I have all these complex health problems, give me a bottle of herbs and I'll be fixed in 3 weeks, right?
Yeah, or 100%. But then also, you know, I guess it's like, pull on one of the threads and maybe it'll make a little, it's like one of sometimes they all, you know, it's just pick one. And I think if, you know, and also like if you and I were working with the same person, you know, we both had the same consult and then we both went away, we'd both come up with a completely different herbal formula for that person and some advice, and it'd be completely different, but it's not to say that either of it would be wrong, because, you know, it'd just be pulling on two different threads that would eventually unravel the whole ball, maybe. I think
we choose different threads to pull on. And that we take them on a different journey of unraveling, a different journey of healing. I guess that's back to that mystery piece, right? And I think that's so important in this idea of sacred herbalism. For me, there's something about working with plants and working with healing and working with psychedelic plants and working with, you know, the other plants like mugwort and lemon balm and chamomile and really getting to know them. There's this unknowable quality, you know, you're talking about, I don't know, this humility piece. And that mystery allows me to be humble and allows me to feel really excited, like there's something more wild and magical than just my own desires and my own aspirations for my business and my own the way that I've organized my bedroom, you know?
and where I'm going to take my family on a holiday next Christmas. You know, like there's something wilder and more magical that I'm so thirsty for. And I feel like working with plants has really created an amazing doorway, an avenue for me to keep tapping into that.
Yeah.
How does that relate to your experience?
Definitely. So many threads popped through while you were saying that, but I love that you get so excited by the unknowing. Like that's what, you know, it's that magical element of not knowing, which is like I guess, you know, with your partner or child, it's like, do we even know them? You know, there's always more to learn about the people that we think we know the most. And it's the same with the plants. And the humbleness. I love that you brought up that humbleness piece again, because that does seem to be maybe one of the I think we come to a dead end when we think that we know, don't we? But when we're just so comfortable with like sitting in that I don't know, I want that's the question. That's like I want to know. That leads on to the I want to know more, and that's what just deepens everything and opens visions even more, doesn't it? Maybe that in a way is like a gateway into, like, people say, oh, I don't know anything about plants, like what you know, it's like, that's perfect. You'll never know. yeah
We definitely have a culture of like if you look at the way that business works, and when you work as a freelancer and run your own business, like social media is the primary way that you can promote it, right? There's not really a newspaper you can advertise in. It's not how people engage with these kinds of services anymore. And there's so much pressure, I find, in the Instagram world to be the expert.
Yes.
And so then I find myself leaning into that, and there is a lot that I know about plants that's worth sharing, but it kind of misses that mystery and that magic when there's this like, oh, I must be she who knows plants, you know.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point to make. Well, I'm glad that we can post this podcast on our Instagram to be like, hi, like, watch my reels and...
I don't know anything.
I don't know anything. But yeah, I really hear that. I also similarly relate, like when I'm teaching or, with the client, just like wanting them to feel, it's like, I want them to feel safe in that, like as well, knowing that I have knowledge to share, but it's like how to, and not to be just standing up there and being like, I don't know anything, like you pick the herbs, like what do you like that, just to be a bit more I'm not sure how to sit in that place, because sometimes it feels a bit masculine to me. Sometimes I feel like because I want to be in this place of like, I know I don't know, like I know things that I can share with you that I can cut off from the not knowing, maybe the humility piece, just because I also don't want them to feel like, what am I doing here if this person doesn't know anything? So how do you hold both the authority of where you are at in your relationship with plants and your journey with plants, and the wild unknowing mystery? And in a way, being able to hold that wild unknowing mystery is a type of mastery, right? Yes.
And I think that's something that I've been thinking about a lot, and really longing to step into, and wishing that there were teachers and like elders in my tradition, your tradition of traditional Western herbal medicine, that like ancient old world herbalism. That's what I feel like I haven't received. I've received a lot of information about plants in my journey, in my studies, right? But how do you be in mastery of the mystery and non-knowing, holding that in a really potent way? I think that's what the sacred herbalism topic is so exciting for me. It's why that's so exciting for me, to get to talk to people about what it is to be in sacred relationship with plants.
And I think it sounds like that's what you do with your in your trainings as well, and the courses that you run. You're really just inviting people to have their own experience, have their own sitting, and you're talking about how you'll give someone a plant to work with for 1 week, and then they're taking it every day and experiencing it every day, and then you'll only then at the end reveal who the plant was, and that's so beautiful. I feel like that. I love that. I think that's a really great way of allowing others to, just creating a space almost, and maybe that's like in the sacred herbalism, just creating a space for people to sit in their exploration and then not knowing.
Allowing the plants to do most of the teaching, because they're the ones who really know the plants.
Maybe that's what it means to be a herbalist.
How do you feel that idea of the sacred and that that present, mystical, unknowable mystery that we've been talking about. How do you feel that shows up in your work as a herbalist?
Well, maybe even like, why am I even working with plants? Sometimes and I've never really questioned that, but I've never really questioned the point, which was like, well, how did I get to the point that I am today? And I love that mystery of just feeling very guided and very like it's almost like I don't know why I do what I do. I just know that I love it and I just do it. And I don't know, maybe you have a similar feeling. Yeah. And that in itself is like a sacred mystery.
Can you tell me a bit more about your journey on the medicine path? Yeah.
When I grew up, I was homeschooled, and so I had a lot of time just playing in the garden and propagating plants. And we lived near the beach, and there was a local foreshore with native plants and grasses, and my family would go down there like weekly and weed and plant and just try and keep those plants alive. They're all bulldozed now, but we did that for many years, and so I had a real connection to the plants of the Sandbell in Port Phillip Bay. And then my first job was at a native plant nursery, and I was helping volunteers, and we were just running workshops and propagating plants, and it was just always so much fun. I was just excited by the different plants, and always seeing something and trying to grow it at home or put it in a terrarium or a pot. And that just naturally progressed to, I went to Europe, and while I was there I just felt so overwhelmed by the cities and the stagnation, just all of the built up buses and festivals, and I was only really feeling at home when I was in a garden space. So that led me to come back home and just start woofing around Australia and seeking out people who were working with plants and growing food. And that was where it was until I had my first, I guess up until that point, in my early 20s, I hadn't had any health issues as such. And then I think I had a tooth infection. I was actually living with Reese, your partner at the time and partner now. And I remember, just suddenly not feeling well, not being able to show up as my fullest self. So that then led me on this huge journey of trying to find out people who work with plants as medicine, working on different farms, herb farms, and then doing the degree, which turned into a 6-year degree. So it took so much time off. But that's kind of my journey to how I am today. So in a way, it just feels like it all flowed into it. There was never a questioning. It was just like, oh, this is where the plants are guiding me next, Yeah.
That's a beautiful feeling to have had.
Yeah.
And what's happening for you in your work as a herbalist now? What's alive for you?
Well, I mentioned I was working with Mugwort before, and so Mugwort I've just been going deeper and deeper into it, and I was also using it as an anti-parasitic, because I recently felt like I'd gathered a worm in my years, maybe living up north in Byron, and so I started doing it. I was also using wormwood and some other things, and then actually pooed out a worm that was like 20 centimeters long.
Wow.
I just thought, I don't know if you want to go there on your podcast. That was an amazing experience in a way. Working with worms.
Do you find, I have this experience that I can relate to, I think you might be having the same thing, where I'm still surprised when herbs work, which is so weird, because my entire career, well, a large part of my career and so much of my passion is around plants as medicines. And yet the other day I had a really awful ulcer on the roof of my mouth. I don't know why. And every time I ate anything, it was bleeding. It was really awful. And I had this thought of like, oh, if I was someone else, I'd tell me to go and use some marshmallow root. And I had this marshmallow root glycetract, and so I just rubbed some on my ulcer before I went to bed. And I woke up and it was almost gone. I did another little rub, and then within a few hours it was over. And it had been there for days, bleeding and getting worse and getting worse. And I had this experience of like, what do you know?
Wow.
That actually worked. And somehow I still have a moment of surprise or disbelief, and I have to keep having these experiences again and again to override, I guess, the cultural programming that something so simple and so readily available and so belonging to the people can actually be so powerful and healing. We've done such a good job of handing over the power of healing and change to institutions and technology. Something as simple as some marshmallow root that I, ground up and put some glycerin on just changing something dramatic is still surprising and shocking and kind of a reality check in some way. So I imagine you might have had a similar feeling with the worm. You're like, wow, it had some mugwort and this huge worm just came out of me.
Yes, definitely. Well, it was pretty strong, some strong doses of things, but yes, like it 100%. I really feel that and it's again humbling, isn't it, when you're like, you have these, and you have to have those experiences like ulcer and the worm, almost to just be like, yes, and like, I've just sort of thought, when you hear stories, ancient stories, and they were, they're with a maybe a god or something, like, prove to me, like, give me a miracle right now. And then I think and then sometimes it's like, sometimes as a worker as a herbalist, you need those moments where you're like, oh yes, this is why I do this work, because it's amazing.
Yeah. And just to have access to plants and medicines that are so freely and abundantly available, really, right? Like, if you think of most people in the world who don't have the pharmaceutical benefit scheme, and the government doesn't pay their pharmaceuticals, and they don't have access to the medical institution, it's not paid for by people's taxes, herbal medicine is so much more accessible, and those other kinds of medicines really aren't. And so losing those traditions and those wisdom is really serious for most of the poor people of the world, right? Sitting here in Australia, it's like, yeah, I think it would be really sad to not have access to herbal medicine, but at least there's another system to catch us. And if you look at, even the World Health Organization says that 80% of the world's population uses herbal medicine as their primary form of healthcare. And when I first read that statistic, I was like, wow, that's cool. That many people in the world really believe in herbs. And it took me a while. Took me a while to be like, oh no, that's the only option most people have. And it's the only option that we've had for most of, like, 99% of human history, right? And that relationship with the plants and those traditions of using the plants to support our well-being and to look after our family and our people is part of being human. It's like interwoven in the very fabric of how our bodies and our minds have evolved, even on a biochemical level.
Definitely. And it's just because we're in Australia in a somewhat potentially privileged, yes, way, we've forgotten that is what's really readily accessible, definitely. And we're almost discouraged here to believe that there's anything else out there. I think it is often really discouraged, and I do feel that there's kind of like a fear and a kind of this underlying fear that's in a lot of people, like, oh, that plants aren't safe, or that they're ineffective.
It's funny how you can hold both those beliefs, right? Because if something is ineffective, it doesn't do anything, so it's going to be completely benign generally, right?
But there is this definitely, like, oh, dangerous, you don't know what's in them, it's true, there's these two paradoxical kind of beliefs that are there, which seem to be almost creating a smoke screen into the fact that they are really readily available. 80% of the world use it as their primary source of medicine, and so for us to be existing in this paradigm here, to have that reminder, it's very beautiful.
So you were talking about mugwort, and you were saying you've been journeying with this beautiful plant, and I'd love to know, other than this amazing worm experience, I'd love to know what else you've been discovering about this being.
Yes, mugwort, the Artemisia. Well, I guess for me, I was really thinking about the womb as well, and just that it has such a warming effect in the whole digestive tract, while like having that bitter effect. I sort of, for me, I guess wanting to have because I feel like I'm very vata, so I feel airy, like I'm quite light, and I can get very cold. I just, especially like in winter, and my digestion can often go out when I'm stressed, because I'm in my head and I'm floating away. And so I love that wormwood has this like bitterness to like ground me, but it doesn't cool down my whole digestive tract. It like warms it up. And so I've been infusing it in oil and rubbing it on my belly and having it in a tincture and drinking it in a tea, and just really open to however it wants to work with me. It just feels like it just keeps giving and giving, mugwort. And it just feels so perfect for me and where I'm at in my life.
Why is that?
Well, because I feel, I had, in my many, I'm really grateful for all health all the different, cycles of my health, and I think I've definitely noticed a difference from my younger years where I felt very, like, my constitution felt very strong and like I could get away with a lot. One of those people that would just go and go. And when I was living up north, I had Ross River fever, and so that really took me out for about a year. And since then, I've really struggled with fatigue and not feeling as robust. I have this sometimes having a sense of like feeling a little bit more permeable almost, and really craving warmth, grounding and warmth to just anchor me through that. So this is where Mugwort feels like it's just such a strong presence in that sense, and it's just for the nervous system, the aromatics as well. But so it's working on all these different systems, and also in my dreams and getting rid of the worms. It's almost like, now saying it, I'm like, I want to have mugwort tea. Just, what's mugwort not good for? What do you use it for? Oh, thank you, to relief. Yes.
Yeah, it's true some.
Yeah.
What do I use mugwort for? Well, I definitely use it for dreams and visioning. I think there's also got quite a powerful like trauma healing capacity for the womb. So women with sexual violence history that need to clear out on that kind of psycho-spiritual level. And you're right, as a beautiful aromatic bitter herb as it is, like all of the artemisias, wormwood, it's so good at working at clearing toxins and moving the bile in the liver, but still keeping things really warm and nourishing, right? So it's such a beautiful balance. Those bitter digestive aromatics, if you tend to have like a delicate digestive system, as I do, I'm quite Vata as well, I find that the straight up hard bitters can sometimes be too much, and mugwort and wormwood are two plants I really like. I often make a little liqueur around Christmas that I pull out for, all of the kind of overeating everyone does. And I'm like, here, everyone's just, and then it's amazing. You give them these like bitter aromatic tinctures and everyone's like, oh, blah, oh. And then you can see everyone just kind of freshen up, it's like moved that kind of heaviness out of their system. That's one way I use mugwort. Yes. Helping my family get through their overeating at Christmas. Yeah, but I've been feeling mugwort really speaking to me lately and wanting to get curious about her again. I had this experience that I've not shared very often, but I had an experience doing a herb course in my early 20s with a friend of mine, and it was a small group, and we were looking at different herbs for women's healing. And every week we were just learning about one herb and kind of going through all these different people's perspectives on it and trying to go really deeply, and he's a really great teacher. And on the last class was mugwort, and there was a woman in the class who had had a lot of sexual violence history, and we were talking about how mugwort's used for moxibustion. So in Chinese medicine, it's not the same mugwort, exactly the same species that we use in medicine, but it's very similar. And they use the Chinese mugwort for moxa, which people don't know is rolling up this dried powdered herb and burning it over different acupuncture points in the body to create warmth and movement of stagnation and tonification, depending how it's used. And it's quite effective for pain. So we've been talking about moxibustion and talking about its use for sexual violence, and this woman really opened up about how that's something she really needed, that kind of healing, and there was kind of a spontaneous process that happened. And we've been working together. This group had gone for about 10 or 11 weeks, so we all kind of knew each other, and there were maybe 7 women in the space. And this woman lay down and we started doing moxa, like sitting in a circle all over her belly and her womb. And she had a really big process, and I had my one and only experience of actually seeing, like, visually a plant spirit. And there was all this smoke rising up from her belly, and I looked up and I saw the mugwort spirit, and I saw what she looked like to me was this like wild woman who would have been maybe like 50 something, and she was like wearing rags, this like strong body, and she was barefoot dancing, stomping on this woman's belly. She had this like wild kind of white grey hair, and she like was had this full power vibe, but she wasn't the crone, she wasn't the young woman. She was this kind of other being, which I now have learnt to talk about as the Maga, the kind of the wise witch woman, you know. And then she looked up at me and her eyes were fully white. She was blind, like the way that seers were blinded. And she was up at me and kind of went, you know, like, I dare you, I see you seeing me. And it was really intense. It was a powerful experience, and I've never had something so clear again other than that one moment. And that really marked me, and almost I kind of felt like, okay, Mugwort, you're full power. Like, that was wild, and you did some serious work for this young woman who'd been really traumatized. And I don't know if I was only maybe 25 then, and I was like, I don't know if I'm ready to meet that power and that intensity and that type of vibe, you know. And It's actually only recently that I'm starting to be, and I've still used Mugwort, but I'm just starting to be like, oh yeah, Mugwort, you'll be 40 next year. It's like a really big time of maturation, and I feel ready in myself to meet what Mugwort really has to share.
Wow, I was getting shivers the whole time you were sharing that story.
I actually can't believe I just shared that.
Yeah, I was getting full. It's pretty amazing. And when you said like the white eyes, I always thought like because we look at this Mugwort now, it's like the undersides of the leaves are white, like they have this, it's like this silvery kind of quality to them. It's very potent, and it just grows so powerfully, doesn't it? Like, I have one in my parents' front yard, and it's like almost 2 meters tall now, just this huge almost tree. Yeah, I actually took a cutting. This plant came from Ceres. I was there, and I just was like, I'm just gonna take a little cutting and put it in some water, and it rooted. And I was renting a house at the time, and so I put it in a pot, and then, you know, a couple of years of coming and going from Melbourne and having other people look after it, and I thought it died twice. It's one little stick of Mugwort, and I thought it died, and I'll just keep watering it and see what happens. Came back, happened again some other time, and then eventually, maybe 4 years later, I've planted it in this garden where I live now, and it, in 12 months, has gone from one little stick to this 2 meter kind of majestic, enthusiastic plant. It's quiet. There's a lot of life force. Yeah, so much life force. Yeah, it's very hardy. Like, it'll just, I like that. Yeah. And that's what I love about so many herbs, that they'll just, you know, even in the driest sort of drought conditions, that like, I have a little Mugwort cutting that I put in the ground, Luke mowed it, you know, and it came back up again. Yeah, well, a lot of the medicine plants are those really resilient plants that know how to be strong and can teach us how to be resilient in the face of whatever it is we struggle with as well. So in this topic of sacred herbalism, I'm curious, like, what is it that you want to be exploring in the sacred herbalist mystery magic realm? What is it that you're called to explore as you continue to move forward in your herbalist journey? Great question. Yes. What's been coming through for me recently is just wanting to spend a lot of time sitting with the plants and just in that space of not knowing and listening. Like, I really want to start just listening more and more and more deeply, and, you know, it's so much of what I talk about, and I encourage everyone that I work with and who works with me to do. And it's like I really want to walk my talk even more and come to a place of where I'm just listening to how they want to be worked with. You know, they're already sort of doing that, but I guess I don't know exactly what that looks like. You know, I've done vision quests or something like that, you know, just really going and just sitting with the plants in a space of humility. Like, they may not want to talk with me, I may not have an experience like your Mugwort Marga, you know, but it's like, I guess it's like all I can do is sort of ask, and I suppose it's already coming through, you know, when I'm in my garden, you know, like saying hello and just sort of brushing the leaves and just feeling this like, and then feeling them just being like, hi Lily. And then I often see them getting a bit sad when I go away for a couple of weeks, or I haven't been paying attention to the garden for a while. It's like, it's just that I haven't been there saying hello almost. Things just start to look a bit neglected. But it's like I just see it in my garden when I don't even necessarily need to be watering or weeding or anything, but if I'm showing up there, that everything's just growing really vibrantly because it's being listened to. That's sort of how it feels. So I guess, I just feel like I want to spend some time getting out of my human mind and my just striving business, you know, building mind, to just being like with this other state of where I'm like, yeah, just in the like, hey, how you going? Yeah, listening space.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
I think when you're talking about the way that when you're walking in your garden, you're not there, you know, that you feel that the plants are, that they miss you essentially, right? And that makes me think that what's happening when we're talking about listening to plants and learning to listen to plants, we're not just talking about developing a new skill. We're talking about rewriting the underlying cosmology of our belief system, of our inner philosophy. Because we're shifting then from this inner cosmology of the world as a mechanistic kind of resource factory that humans as the agents are moving through into a very different, older, animistic philosophical system where we see other beings that we don't understand so well, that aren't so obviously sentient, as still alive and vibrant and capable of being agents in their own right, you know. So when you're walking in the garden, in order to listen to a plant, you have to rewire the part of your brain that says plants can't say stuff, plants don't talk, you know. Like it's a big work. It's really big foundational philosophical repatterning. It's reculturation, which is extremely hard to do in isolation. And yet here we all are on our own trying to learn these skills and feeling like we should, as herbalists, somehow just know how to do this.
It's interesting that you said, you know, in saying that we're here doing it in isolation, you said before I needed to organise a course to have the time to do it, but it's like maybe you just needed the energy of those other people to do it with. You know, maybe that's why I run the courses that I with. It's not just, and I actually think that is one of the reasons why I run courses, is because I just want to do it with other people. Yeah, I want to be, and I'm learning just as much as the people that come every time. Yeah.
Totally. Yeah, it's a really beautiful angle on it. And so much of like, yeah, in the process that I do with my Finding Your Plant Allies course, where the group is taking a plant blind for a week and then coming back and everyone's sharing their experiences, it's really the fact that other people are noticing similar things that allows people to start to trust their listening. And so then they know what it is they're listening for, you know. And yesterday was the last class, so people were reflecting on the journey overall, and a few people said, yeah, at the beginning, you know, there were things that I was noticing, but I didn't really think that could be the plant. I thought it must just be coincidence, or that must just be what's happened in my life this week. And it's only then you hear someone else share that reflection, you're like, oh, I didn't share that, but that happened for me too. And so as they went on, they start to trust that listening, and I start to trust that listening because I'm, you know, sitting, I know what the plant is, so I'm sitting with it, I'm feeling into it, but I know a lot about that plant. I've written a 2-hour class on it, you know. It's like I've read like, you know, 10 hours of research papers, and, you know, what do you know, so I know so much information about it. It's hard to trust myself in that intuitive sense when my mind is so full of other people's thoughts about it. But then in that group, and you hear people tuning into things that I've tuned into as well, I'm like, oh yeah, that's what I'm hearing. I start to feel the texture of what it is that's the plant communication, and what it is that's my inner world, you know.
Yeah, 100%. I feel like you said that so beautifully. I'm like, yep, totally agree, 100%. So beautifully worded. Yeah, and it is like, it is, yeah, everything that we know in a way that we've read, that kind of knowledge, I guess you'd call it, is different to the wisdom that comes from, I guess wisdom, yeah, it's that felt experience. And when all that we know, our intellect is in the way of that, it's like, it's hard to be like, well, I know all of that, but like, do I really know it? I think, yeah, so the plants, that they're pretty, I feel like they're pretty smart, and then every now and then they'll do something like the mouth ulcer or the worm and be like, hey, remember you're like, you were doubting, weren't you? You know, you were just getting lost in the mind, but here we go. There's so many different experiences, and I often find that, like, one thing I like to do sometimes is give myself like a test or something, like be like, I need this, you know, like you sunburnt and you're in an area you don't know, like you just like visualize aloe vera, and then you'll sort of like open your eyes and walk out the door of wherever you are, and then just sort of like be guided to it or something like that.
Oh, beautiful.
And I find that, or if not aloe vera, you know, something that is going to be beneficial for the, you know, just like sort of just like allowing your heart to guide you to where what you need is there. Yeah,
That's really beautiful. That reminds me of some of the stories that Robin Wall-Kimmerer speaks about in Braiding Sweetgrass. I don't know if you've read that book. So she's a Potawatomi elder and a biologist, I think, no, botanist. And she speaks about some of the ways that the indigenous plant people of the Americas would go into the forest to harvest, and they'd call the plants and they just walk and find them. It's a slightly different way to do that, but it's a way to do that in a more modern context, you know, almost like, yeah, I love that. I've never tried that.
It really works. Yeah. Like I feel like it always works. yeah. Calling.
It does sound so mystical, right? But I'm sure that if someone wanted to break down how that happens in a materialistic way, there'd be some, you know, our capacity as the heart as a sensory organ and what we can pick up on frequencies and vibrations is so much more rich and nuanced than we currently understand. And it doesn't have to be something so out there. You know, there's probably some way that our heart or our brain or some part of our body is picking up on the vibration of a particular quality. And you're looking for this, you know, sunburn, I need slippery, I need soothing, I need moist. And you can almost taste that on the wind, I feel like, is a way I can imagine traditional people's explaining it, you know.
Yeah, and you like almost like you start to think like the plant would think, and you know, it's like, where would I be growing if I was this, you know, like a hunter kind of, and then you're just almost guided to where it would be growing. Yeah.
Lee the plant tracker.
Yeah, plant tracker. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm really inspired by that. I'm going to give that a go sometime. And that's right. That's a beautiful experience of sacred herbalism, you know. It's like, how are we in relationship with plants, whether it's a two-way dynamic experience, and that's like a type of sensing and calling and listening with really tangible results. It's not just like, oh, I think I got the feeling that this plant was telling me that it's good for the gallbladder, right? Like, it's something really tangible. You call to it and then you go and you find its physical form. Like, that's very clear.
Yeah, and then even if there's not like a tangible thing that you're working on or anything, I've done I can't remember this woman, it was a wise women's gathering years ago, and we were out in a field and she was like, just close your eyes and start walking, and then sort of open them, like, you know, with the gaze, like a really soft gaze, and then just keep walking until you're guided to a plant, and then, you know, ask permission to pick it and then bring it back, and we'd all sort of share, and so many of us didn't know what we picked, and then it would just be like the perfect plant every time, you know, that kind of, and I think that's a beautiful thing for people to do wherever they are, like even in a city, just to be guided to a plant. That's a great way to find a relationship with a plant.
If you enjoyed Lily's open-hearted, humble approach to herbal medicine, then I recommend you follow her on Instagram, Lily of the Herbs, or check out her website, lilyoftheherbs.com. She has 2 learning opportunities coming up at the beginning of June. On Saturday, the 3rd of June, she's running a full-day immersive herbal medicine making workshop at her home in Warrandyte on the outskirts of Melbourne. In that day, a small group of people will go on a wild herb walk, collect, forage and dry herbs, make an immune-boosting oxymel, a nervous system elixir and a wound healing salve. The following day, on the afternoon of Sunday, the 4th of June, she's running a 3-hour online introduction to herbal medicine, which covers the principles of herbal medicine, how to connect with plants, how to gather and harvest them, and the energetics and elemental principles of working with herbs. That's us for this moon cycle. I'm so glad you walked into the dark forest with me. This podcast is part of The Elder Tree, a non-profit dedicated to empowering people through grassroots herbal education, weaving a strong community of herbalists, healers and plant folk in Australia. you can head over to theeldertree.org to find out more. If you like this episode, we'd love you to subscribe. And if you know who we should interview next, drop us a line. See you next month. And in the meantime, may you be blessed with good health and many plants.